moved.
What year did
and
this
then
flood then?
68.
Was it? So it was a bad flood, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was what sparked all the development off. All floods down on Saffron Lane and Oliver Street and Cromwell Street, all down there.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
That's when they started all the Brook improvement programmes all over the city.
Yeah. Well, shall we stop in front of this ash tree, which is a very venerable ash tree. This ash tree is actually listed as a local wildlife site in and of itself because of its age and its uniqueness in this setting. It's if you look at the map, well, Ben, who's my colleague down there, has maps of the city wildlife sites. So Washbrook Nature Area will be is one, but that tree alone is another one. It appears on the map. So the Brook Channel runs down behind that Cow Parkley there. One of the things that we'd like to do is to make it a bit more visible. So trying to encourage those to be cut down to a lower level so that people appreciate that, because you could walk past and not know that the brook was here.
Can't see it down there.
No.
Through the old allotment. Through the end, so we've tried to clear it a bit around this bottom end.
Yes, it's been a bit wooden.
There's huge amounts of debris removed and glitter picked from here by the lead volunteers.
I can imagine.
From this bit? It tends to be at either end, under the bridges or next to the bridges, but they're all the way along. Unfortunately, needles and things like that as well at the far end. So Ben, who's in the white tabard, so here's what there they go. It looks very like a muddy hole in the ground.
If you remember, if you cast your mind back, we had 3 sort of SUDS features. There was sustainable urban drainage features, so basically little depressions on the side that were holding water intermittently throughout the year. Do you remember them? Yeah. It's hard to remember them now because we've put obviously extensions to those in, but we actually retained the original one. So that's one of the original ones there, and then that's the extension to it. So we used those 3 points as fixed areas that we could do some grassland enhancements adjacent to, because if you try and get your bearings along this grassland bank here, it's really hard. So essentially there's like 25-metre strips set back just behind each of those old SUDS features. So if we walk, and I'm putting my reputation on the line now, if we walk to that area, we should be able to see what's called the meadow making plant, which is the yellow rattle. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's very characteristic. So let's do that, and then I'll plant features just to give invertebrates another source of habitat for them. It blends in quite well, I think.
Yeah, I think they look great.
This area was all down as amenity grassland management, so it was just constantly mowed on a cycle up to sort of 10 times a year. What we've done now is brought these patches, you stood in the middle of one of them, there's 3 of them, into a different management prescription where we allow them to grow to full height, and at the end of the growing season, once all the plants have set their seed, we would cut them and then ask the volunteers to help us rake the arisings or the cuttings away, and then we take those cuttings and put them somewhere else on the site. So the idea is that you're helping those wildflower species develop within the grassland habitat and not just be bogged down by all of this coarse grass here. The key plant is this one, and I'm really happy to see that this is propagated well in the sward. So this is yellow rattle, or sometimes called hay rattle. If you look at it, it's really characteristic. It stands out from all the other plants. It's got this really unique leaf pattern. So you've got these serrated, sort of tooth-like edges. It starts off really small like that, and then it gets quite large. And the key thing that does is it's semi-parasitic. So it actually takes away the growth habit of the grass, the coarse grass, and suppresses its growth. So with wildflowers, especially in very nutrient-rich areas like this, you need a certain amount of sort of open space in amongst the grass for them to grow. And if it's just dominated by coarse grass, they just take it away and then overshadow everything else.
Yeah.
So the idea with this plant, they sometimes call it the meadow maker, is that it suppresses that habit of the coarse grasses and allows more of an open sward or sort of area in amongst the grass for those wildflowers to get away. So the key thing to remember with it is it's not a perennial plant, so it won't come back by itself every year. It has to set seed, and because of that, it's an annual. You have to make sure the management is right for it to take grip and actually do its magic. So one thing I have noticed with the results so far is it's quite thin and patchy. But with this plant, it takes time to do its job. Grassland restoration is notoriously difficult, especially in urban areas and especially in very nutrient-rich areas like this. So I think what we need to do is just make sure we get the management right and ask volunteers to help us achieve that. Then I think we've got a good chance of seeing some results, but it needs to be closely monitored.
So how does it ever survive in the wild?
If it's an annual.
It would have survived with
Thrived.
It would have survived with traditional agricultural processes. So you would have taken a hay cut, and that would have just been in the grass.
Yeah.
You would have left the grass on the ground to dry out and collected it as hay. When you left it on the ground to dry out, all the seed from it would have just dropped onto the ground.
Right.
So it would have been part of that traditional agricultural practice, which is lost now.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of rely on it to help you do these projects. I mean, the only other option in this site would have been to take away the topsoil, and then theoretically you would have a much more suitable sort of low fertility substrate to do the wildflower creation on. There's two problems with that here. One is I'm stood on the top of a significant national gas main, because there's one on that side and there's one on this side, so you can't really get heavy machinery on this bank. You can get it down there because we've got a means to go over on that corner to go over the gas main, but on here that's not an option. The other reason why doing it here is not really an option is because when in this 1972, wasn't it, Chris, when they did the actual flood
68
structures, they just bunged everything onto this bank. So under here it won't just be subsoil, it'll be a mixture of boulders and all sorts of other things. So it's not simple as just doing a soil inversion and then sowing into the subsoil. So we've had to take this approach, and we'll see how it goes. And this was always a bit of a trial, if I'm honest. We wanted to see if this works, to see if we get it right, and monitor it for 5 years. And if it works, then I see no reason that we couldn't just do it across the whole bank and manage it actually as a nature reserve, as opposed to just a sort of open space that has patches of wildflowers on it.
So have you planted anything else besides the yellow rattle?
Not yet. That's a good question. I think once this starts to do its magic and have an effect, then it would be worth doing that. Plug plants or seeding or a mixture of both. But we wouldn't really do that in conservation normally, but because you would just allow natural processes to take over and play the long game with it. The trouble with doing that here is that we're surrounded by urban areas. There aren't any local nearby connected green spaces that are going to offer that seed source, so you kind of have to intervene if you want those results.
Which is why we did the bridge here, isn't it? Because the St Mary's side has been seeded.
Yeah.
And so hopefully what will happen is gradually things will sort of make their way across.
That's
the
true,
intervention of the birds and the critters and the wind and whatever. Eventually, hopefully the two sites will connect, even though we weren't able to put the footbridge in.
Yeah. We have the wildflower bridge though. Which is actually showing better signs of restoration than this. There's just less rank grass, and that's just because it's more gravelly, so there's just less fertility in the ground.
Did you put all the wildflowers in the St Mary's bit, along the St Mary's bit?
Not via this project.
No.
That was part of planning requirement for the houses that went in.
Under siege.
So that part of that development was to bring the remainder of the site into public open space.
Because there, it's interesting on there because some things grew the first year and now have stopped growing entirely.
Yeah.
And now there's other things growing. So over some years that's happening.
That is interesting. I've noticed that there as well, actually. That's part of the ebb and flow.